Oh man, we are back. So recently on Pokemon Showdown, I was able to hit rank 1 on the Regulation I ladder, so pretty cool. I was using this account right here, Just Steal My Act. It's an alternate account that I use in order to test things. But yeah, so we were able to hit rank 1 using this team in front of you with Miraidon, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Grimmsnarl, Lunala, Ursaluna Blood Moon, and then Incineroar. The thing is, I understand that the official Regulation I format doesn't come out again for another month, but I figure that I'll play a bit on Pokemon Showdown with it. One, just to get maybe a little bit ahead of the curve, but also it was kind of because of the fact that I really do not like Regulation G. I've said this many times, but I just don't think Reg G is an amazing format. But Reg I actually really do like the way that it's structured with the 2 restricteds, because I feel like with Regulation G, a lot of it's kind of rock, paper, scissors, where it's like, oh, hopefully I run into these restricteds and then not this one. And if I run into the one I don't want to, then it's kind of tough to win. But at least with Regulation I, you can pair together 2 restricteds that cover each other's weaknesses very well. And I felt that Miraidon and Lunala were kind of a good start to that, just because Lunala does get access to Wide Guard and can block things like Precipice Blades from Groudon and Glacial Lance from opposing Cali Ice to protect Miraidon. And then Miraidon could actually beat up on a lot of things that kind of deal with Lunala, such as Dark types, because you could just go Terra Fairy and then use Dazzling Gleam. I'm not going to get into the specific EVs of it, so we're going to just leave that out for the video, but I will talk about the sets a little bit, like the Terra types, kind of my thought process for it. So the thing is, I wanted to build the team mostly around Miraidon. That was kind of my starting point. Miraidon, I've said it multiple times, but in Regulation G, I thought it was either the best or the second best restricted. I personally thought it was probably the second best after Cali Ice, but the thing is, I feel like in Regulation I, it still probably is one of the best restricteds, just as a singular Pokemon rather than in pairs out there, just because of the damage output it could do, and then also it has really nice stats. Even though you guys don't see the EVs, the thing is, this Miraidon, I will be very honest, I actually was running a very, very bulky set with Choice Specs. It gets really nice coverage with Volt Switch, Electro Drift, Dazzling Gleam, and Draco Meteor. What I would do a lot of the time is I would lead Miraidon Lunala, and I would just hard Volt Switch out into Ursaluna Blood Moon and set up Trick Room on that same turn, and then I'll just kind of sweep with Blood Moon, Ursaluna, or Lunala. Or I would lead Miraidon and Grimmsnarl and then just set up screens and then just start doing crazy damage with the Miraidon. So there was a lot of really nice options to kind of do with it on the team. Another one was Miraidon and then Incineroar. You could fake out something, then just click a quick Dazzling Gleam, Volt Switch, Electro Drift, whatever you floats your boat. But yeah, it's a really, really strong Pokemon. I really do like Choice Specs onto it, but I also think other items are good as well. I think Assault Vest is solid on Miraidon, but I just like Choice Specs just to increase the damage because I was already running so much natural bulk on it with the EVs, and then I was running screens, so I felt that Assault Vest was kind of not necessarily useless, but it was a little bit redundant on this team, so I wanted to increase the damage output. So yeah, Choice Specs, probably the best item on Miraidon. It just hits like a nuke, so yeah. The other thing that I also was using was Urshifu Rapid Strike. It's pretty standard. It was just with Sash, with Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, and Protect. The one difference was the Terra type. I made it Terra Grass, and some of you guys might be sitting here saying wait a minute, why are you running Terra Grass? Is that to be immune to Spore from Amoonguss? Because it wouldn't make sense with Miraidon's Hydron Engine, because Urshifu is grounded, and then Miraidon sets up electric terrain, so you can't get Spored anyway. This is for in case of those scenarios where I do run into Amoonguss, and it actually Rage Powders instead. So this actually allows me to ignore the Rage Powder, because even though you can't get put to sleep, you can't ignore the Rage Powder, and then they'll just Rage Powder you away if you were another Terra type, and then you'll get hit with Rocky Helmet damage and lose the Sash. Where this, it gives a little bit more assurance against that, but also the other thing, I have been seeing a lot of Indeedee next to Amoonguss with Lunala on the team or something, and then Amoonguss would be able to put you to sleep because Indeedee does switch up the terrain, so I thought that Terra Grass was really good. I don't think it's too crazy of a Terra type to go. You could go Terra Water if you want to, but Terra Grass really did come in clutch for me in a lot of the games, and then just the standard set. I think this is probably the best set on Urshifu. Some people do actually like running Taunt on it. I feel like Aqua Jet just overall is better, because there was a lot of matchups where Urshifu would use Surging Strike into something and then it would barely live, but then at least with Aqua Jet you could at the bare minimum have a priority move on the next turn and knock them out, where with Taunt you don't have that, and if your opponent has a way to control the speed of the game, then Taunt then really starts to kind of bite you in the butt a bit. Grimmsnarl is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time competitively. It just really fits into my playstyle, and also I think it does pair really nicely with Miraidon because you get a Dragon Fairy core. Obviously, both of them are weak to Fairy types, but outside of that, it has pretty nice defensive synergy because of the screens that you could set up, and then, again, the Fairy Dragon. Some of you might be looking at Spirit Break and be like, shouldn't you run Foul Play on this team? I'm going to be honest, Foul Play, it's a good move, but I feel like there's also points where it can become actually detrimental to a team, where at least with Spirit Break, it's nice, consistent damage pretty much in every game. Like, obviously, Foul Play is really good for stuff like both Calyrex forms, but the thing is, like, you have to assume that you're running into that with your opponent's team, and not every person's running Cali Ice or Cali Shadow, or even Lunala for that matter. So I just felt like Spirit Break was a nice, consistent move across the board. Like, it didn't necessarily have the highest highs of damage output that Foul Play has, but it also didn't have the lowest lows of damage output that Foul Play had either. It was kind of like nice and in the middle, and was just consistent. Screens, really, really nice, obviously for Miraidon, and especially Lunala and Ursaluna Blood Moon. It could really make them super bulky and kind of a pain to kill both of them. And then Thunder Wave was not only for speed control, but also, I think in a format like this, if you can even get one turn where your opponent doesn't move with one of their restricteds because of Thunder Wave, then it could pretty much like outright win you a game on some turns, which is awesome. Grimmsnarl in these dual restricted formats gains actually a lot of value just because in single restricted, like, it's fine, it's good, but the thing is, now you're setting up screens for 2 restricted rather than 1, and if you lose that 1 restricted in Regulation G, for example, then the screens kind of feel not necessarily like useless afterwards, but not as valuable as opposed to guarding for 2 restricteds. The next Pokemon's Lunala. A lot of people with the Miraidon Lunala pair have been running Electric Seed on Lunala, just to get the defensive boost and kind of make it like almost a new version of Farigiraf. I'm not really crazy about Electric Seed on it, just because I do think Lunala has really nice natural bulk. It's got 137 HP, 89 defense, which is alright, and then 107 special defense. And then the other thing is, I do have the screen, so like Electric Seed felt kind of just not, it just didn't make sense on this team. And then the other thing is like, I don't know, with Electric Seed, it's like, yes, you do get the defensive boost, but the thing is, a lot of the stuff that could hit you on the physical side, you could already kind of just like block it with Lunala, even if Grimmsnarl wasn't on the team, just because there are a lot of like spread moves like Precipice Blades, and then Glacial Lance, which could be blocked by Y-Guard. And then the other thing is that with Lunala, it does have Shadow Shield, so on the first turn when it gets hit, whatever damage it's taken is halved. So it's just like, I don't know, Electric Seed didn't really feel amazing to me. And then the other thing is, some of the other Pokemon that it's used to guard is like against Urshifu, but the problem is you can't guard against Urshifu because its move always just critical hits you, so it just ignores the stat boost. So yeah, I'm not really crazy about Electric Seed. I think just Power Herb is probably the best set, and you just go with Meteor Beam to kind of cover for Incineroar, and then other Pokemon as well. Like, I've been seeing an uptick in just like Pokemon going like Terra Fire. I actually have seen a little bit of Ho-Oh kind of around, which has been pretty cool, because that Pokemon hasn't really gotten like a lot of love in these restricted formats, just because in like past years it really struggled a little bit. But I think this year it could actually maybe be like decent next to Koraidon. So yeah, this was like really nice for that. And then Moongeist Beam, just because that's Lunala's best move. It also ignores the abilities of other Pokemon, which is really, really helpful in certain scenarios, so that's also been pretty good. With the Meteor Beam, since you do get +1 with the Power Herb, then Moongeist Beam just ends up hitting like, it just hits like a truck. So it does a lot of damage, and then the Y-Guard's just really nice utility, and then I have Trick Room for the Ursaluna Blood Moon. I also went Terra Water on this, so in case you run into like Koraidon teams, you could just set up Terra Water, set up a Reflect with Grimmsnarl, and then set up Trick Room. And it actually just makes those matchups a lot easier, where if you were another Terra type that didn't resist Fire type moves, then you could be in for a world of hurt. But this is just like a nice neutral Terra type for most matchups across the board, and it's really good against those Sun teams. So yeah, pretty good. Ursaluna, this was kind of like my Trick Room sweeper. Originally I ran actually regular form Ursaluna, the set that had like Facade and like all that, but I wasn't really crazy about regular form Ursaluna, just because my biggest issue with it is that if it got intimidated once, even with like the Guts boost and the Flame Orb, it felt like it wasn't doing as much damage, where at least with this Ursaluna, you can't get intimidated and then have your damage reduced. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, with the other form of Ursaluna, you can't hit opposing ghost types unless you run like Throat Chop or something on it, where with this Ursaluna, with Mind's Eye, you can hit ghost types. This thing was really good for my team. It was a really nice switch into Miraidon if it was locked into like an electric move. I'm speaking about opposing Miraidon, obviously. And then the other thing, it also was a nice switch into stuff like Kali Shadow because of the normal type, so you couldn't get hit by ghost moves, and also was a nice switch into other opposing Lunala, and then you could hit all three of those things back for like a huge amount of damage. This thing was really, really good. Even outside of Trick Room, it still could function really well as long as you had the screens up. It just was kind of a nuke. Some of you might be asking why I went Terra Ghosts. I know Terra Normal is the most popular one, at least to my knowledge. The thing is, I felt like Terra Normal, it just was not... It didn't really make sense to me, because even without the Terra Normal type and going Terra Ghost, you still were picking up one-shots with like Blood Moon and like doing a lot of damage with Earth Power and Hyper Voice, so I felt like it was more valuable to do a defensive Terra type, so I went with Ghost just to kind of avoid body press from opposing Zamazenta and then close combats from opposing Urshifu. So that felt really, really strong to me. The last Pokemon is Incineroar. Some of you might be like, why is he running a safety goggles set? I'm on a Rhydon team. It's just in case against those teams that have Indeedee and Amoonguss on it, I just have at least some way out. I pretty much am just running the standard Incineroar set. It's just Fake Out, Knockoff, Parting Shot, Will-O-Wisp. The Will-O-Wisp was for physical attackers like Zacian and then Kali Ice. The thing is, before I had Incineroar on this team, I ran a bunch of stuff in the slot. So I ran at one point... I ran Iron Treads, which I wasn't really crazy about. I tried out for Rigoraph, which felt like it wasn't as strong in this format. I tried Volcarona, I tried Ogerpon, and eventually I just landed on Incineroar. I was like, you know what, if I can't figure out what the last slot is, let me just throw on one of the greatest competitive Pokemon of all time. And it worked out pretty well. Yeah, the Intimidate's super nice for Zacian, because without Incineroar on this team, if you just like don't have it, the rest of the team actually has a lot of issues against Zacian, where Incineroar actually flips that matchup, and it's really, really good into the matchups where it's a Zacian and then Kali Shadow core, because you have Will-O-Wisp for the Zacian and Knockoff for the Kali Shadow. Plus, you could reposition and pivot out with Parting Shot. So just like really nice option overall. It was a really, really good defensive switch in. I don't really need to say much about it, just because, I mean, you guys all know the deal with Incineroar. I went with Terra Water over Terra Ghost, just because my attitude was I already had Terra Ghost on Ursaluna Blood Moon, and I have a Ghost type in Lunala. So I went with Terra Water just because it's a nice defensive type overall, and it's kind of neutral into a lot of matchups across the board. So, yeah, that was kind of my attitude into it. Yeah, so that's pretty much the team. I know I don't have the spreads or anything for you guys. I just want to kind of keep those on lock for a little bit, just because I want to keep the team kind of to myself. But you at least know, like, the items, the Terra types and moves, and at least my philosophy as to going into making this team. I feel like Miraidon Lunala, it's just like, it's one of those cores where it doesn't feel overpowering, but it also doesn't feel like bad in any matchups. Like, it feels good in certain matchups, but it doesn't feel like super, super amazing or super, super bad. It's a nice neutral core where you cover a lot of options, and I think it really just kind of comes down to, in a lot of matchups, who can just play better between you or your opponent. And I much rather prefer teams like that rather than having a team that like auto wins against something but then auto loses against something else. So yeah, this just felt like a really, really good team. With that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I will catch you all next time.